Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another episode with me, Hesha Chima. Today I have with me none other than obstetrician and gynecologist Dr. Vaishali Joshi. And this episode, I'm 100% sure, is special for each one of us and all you women out there. So join me in welcoming Dr. Vaishali. Hello, doctor, how are you?
I'm good, Hisha, and thank you for connecting with us so that I know today's topic is quite interesting, and as you said correctly, it the woman's health is the priority now in current pandemic. So please let's start whatever you want to ask me.
Yes. So basically, we have a whole bunch of questions ready for you because I personally feel, and even our audiences would relate, that pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, women's health is of crucial importance. And none other than you would be able to attest and guide us. So with your expertise, I'd like to ask you the very first question, which is, how frequently should one visit a gynecologist, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s? You being a gynecologist yourself, what do you advise?
See, it is a question which I think internationally whole community is trying to address. If you look at the history, the American College of Obstetrician and Gynecology, which is a leading professional body, they had put in that every woman after age of 21 really ideally should be having annual gynecologist visit. But at the same time, whether it should be for patients or women who have problems or whether they don't have problems. So the whole idea is, I think, in current situation with current pandemic, and then in our world where we have to balance everything, our health, money, economics, everything. So I think that we need to decide depending on the woman's risk assessment and her gynecologist herself. So ideally, I would say that obviously it's always better to have a gynecological visit, even if you are fine, and then have a plan of your care or care done with her consultation depending on your individual health, and then you can time your visits. So maybe if you're very young, meaning between 20 to 30, then you may not need to go every year. It also depends nowadays with after 20s, the woman getting sexually active and things, then also the things do change drastically. So the need for the woman also changes, like choice of contraception, risk of sexually transmitted infections, then your general health. So these are and nowadays in current pandemic, mental health. So these are the different things one need to assess and then decide the frequency of gynecological visit. Now this is early age, then maybe 30 to 40, I would say maybe every at that point of time one needs to do certain screening tests for women health, like pap smear, which is a cervical cancer screening test, which is ideally recommended at an interval of 3 years. So if you want to club everything together, and if you are otherwise healthy, then maybe every 3 yearly, but definitely after 40, the frequency needs to be increased. So I would say either yearly or every other year, depending on woman's health, one needs to decide.
That's definitely helpful, because I feel until and unless we women go through a very big problem, I think especially here in India, like in abroad, I think it's very common for people to get their mammograms and pap smear very frequently, to keep it in check. We here in India have a very different mindset that until there is a problem, we don't really tap into that and visit a gynecologist. So I feel it's great that you shared with us and the entire audience here that once a year minimum, it's important, whether in your 20s or 30s, to get yourself checked. And I feel like when your problems keep increasing, if at all, I hope that never happens, but then is when you moderate your frequency basis the doctor's consultation. But doctor, what I also want to ask you is that, as you rightly said, that, a woman's body goes through a lot of changes, from her 20s to her 30s. Can you list down certain changes that one should be wary of, when they're transitioning from their 20s to 30s and 30s to 40s?
As we age, our body goes through the changes, and those can be different, like physical changes and the internal changes, which may not be aware. A person may not be aware of those changes, but one needs to be vigilant and looking out for them. So particularly 20 to 30, you are at a peak of your youth, and you are full with energy, quite busy, not worried about your body image, everything. So everything is perfect most of the time. 30 to 40 is the shift when things do change subtly. So and obviously after 40 we know but then after 40 is the time the body will start talking, obviously. So what are the changes one needs to be looking out for? So in general, I would say first thing is weight gain, which is a very so middle-aged syndrome. I don't know how to define whether middle age is between 30 to 40 or 35 to 45. So that's the time maybe because of post-pregnancies, the lifestyles, at the time where of your career you are there. So you do tend to put on little bit of weight, and that's one thing. The second thing it may happen is, so the main weight gain is the central body weight. So tummy, hips, thighs. So these are the main important things. Then there are other things like, I would say, is hair. So hair fall, or there may be excess body hair coming up, or hair thinning. So these are the things. The quality of hair differs. Then the skin also becomes, maybe you may, meaning particularly in industry where you are more show time or other where you are in public, on public platform. So wrinkles, this is all because of the decrease in collagen formation which happens over the period. So these are the things one need to be looking out for. The other things are 3 bones. So 3 B's, that is bones, then bladder and breast. So the size of the breast may increase. You may notice the sagginess of the breast. So maybe because we don't do that much exercise during that time, and that does not give good muscular support. And bones. The bones, as you know, that as we age, the bone density kind of falls down. In some individual where there is a genetic history of osteoporosis, it becomes more rapidly. Then the third B is bladder. So particularly between 30 to 40, but the bladder control becomes weaker. So there may be urgency or strong urge to pass urine, or you may have a little bit of leakage when you cough, sneeze. So these kind of problems can happen. And the most important last thing, the changes which is not obvious, that is fertility changes. So as we age, there is a decline in fertility. So that usually starts after 32 year of age, but it is more significant or rapid decline happens after 35 and maximum after 37. So these are different changes a woman's body undergoes from, I would say, 30 to 40, 45. So one needs to be aware of them.
Yeah, I think that's so well put. But doctor, tell me something, earlier it was always advised, especially for women, they keep telling us that you're on a biological clock, And in today's day and age, like most of the women, 90% of the women, even in India, are very career focused, and sometimes they tend to keep their careers as well as the whole, family life separate. In such a case, what would you advise that particular patient? Would you be giving them an age bracket, to sort of conceive, like generally, or is it that you would assess and then probably advise? Like, what would your recommendation?
I think it's a very good question, because see, we are in this era where meaning we all career women should be given choices, and it's her every woman's right to decide what she wants to do in her life. And as you put correctly, the biological clock is the one which is the main hindrance in that. There are a lot of options available nowadays. Particularly, I would not limit one's career because of the age. I think age is, as you know, is only number. So the biological clock, you can slow down its pace by having healthy lifestyle, like regular exercises, diet. See, you cannot be on diet all the time, but it's important to understand the calorie intake. And as we age, like after 35, our caloric requirement goes down. So that's something one needs to be aware of. And obviously, the changes in the bone, the muscles, there is a more tendency for muscles also to get transformed into fat. So these important things can limit and slow down the biological clock. The other important test I would do if somebody is planning to delay the pregnancy is to have a judgment of what is her current fertility level is. So if somebody wants to conceive naturally and doesn't want to go through the medicalized way or treatment for fertility, then and is ready to compromise, ready to be flexible, then the fertility test will give us a guidance, and that can we can give her advice. Okay, I think you should, in next 1 year is the maximum you can wait, and then you should try. So that's another thing. And then somebody who just want to focus on career, then they have nowadays option of something called egg freezing. You must have heard about it. And even the egg freezing needs to be done at the right time. It's of no use doing egg freezing at age of 39, where your fertility is in your bottom level. So that has to be discussed, counsel, because only egg freezing is not the option, because how long you can keep the eggs, and then there is a cost factor as well. So everything one needs to be understanding before they need to decide when to plan their pregnancy, how much delay they should do to plan pregnancy.
Great. Doctor, what are the different kind of changes, a woman experiences post-menopause, or, probably while she is having her menopause?
Yeah. So post-menopause, the first thing, there will not, meaning people look at the periods in different ways. Menopause means no periods for a year. And so some women look at it, good riddance. That's one thing, because obviously they have been going through a lot of problems because of periods. But some many 20 to 30% ladies feel that lack of period as a something wrong with their femininity, because even that affects, that is the hormonal factors also contribute to that period, emotion, I would say. There are different changes the body goes through. First, meaning I did discuss what are the changes between pre-menopause. I would say the weight gain, which is the most obvious and most dreading part of a woman, because the weight gain can be drastic, and the weight wouldn't budge with your regular efforts like diet, exercise, and it will be mostly the central body, so our tummy, hips, and thighs. So that's one thing. Second thing is skin. That our hormones, the release by the ovaries, like estrogen, is very, very important for our skin texture, hair, our bones, then our heart, and our lipids as well, the cholesterol. So it really protects women from all these ill effects of which arise because of these three elements. So the skin becomes very thin. The skin, not only your external skin, the vaginal skin becomes very dry. So women can experience painful relations, decrease libido, or decrease sex drive. That may be a possibility. Then the bones also thinned out, and there is something called osteoporosis. So one that can put women at a risk of easy fractures, and that can limit their mobility. So it's very important to understand that. The commonest thing you must have heard about menopause changes are psychomotor symptoms, like hot flushes, night sweats, extreme irritability, anger. So these are the things which psychological and emotional thing a woman goes through. And then there can be other issues like bladder control, right? Or our internal organs like the uterus, they may just sag down, because as you know, as we age, the muscles and the collagen decreases, and the strength of the tissues support goes away, and these tissues, they fall from their normal place. So these can be very, very odd problems where women are a bit reluctant to come forward to talk about. Meaning particularly the bladder issue and these the prolapse, in our term we call it uterovaginal prolapse, when the uterus comes down. So these are the meaning women feel stigmatized, meaning why I should go and talk, it is a part and parcel of life. So I think it's good that you are addressing these issues on this platform.
Actually, I think, Doctor, that's the whole agenda also of meeting up with you today, because it's so important that doctors like yourself actually normalize women talking about these issues, because if we all will go through it at some point in time, and B, if a doctor can help us process, guide us, and maybe better our health, then why not? Plus, I feel that we are in a day and age right now wherein all of these things, tend to not only impact our mental health, but these also leave a very long-lasting impression on our overall well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah, because see, as you said rightly, these are the things which affect your quality of life. It affects you. And see, we don't have a support group or something. And being a woman, we don't want to trouble. Like that's what our generation, or maybe a generation before us, women think that, oh, this may be very common, why I need to, as long as it is not giving me problem, let it be. So as you said, first thing when we started the interview, that the prevention, meaning you will seek a medical help only when the problem goes to the right extreme. So there isn't a thought of prevention yet in our society, which we really need to cultivate.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this culture, I feel, is definitely out of India and abroad, especially in New York, California. I think women are very, very aware of, what their body is going through, will go through, and how they sort of need to work, their lifestyle around it. And I really hope that through this conversation, we reach a lot of women who can, rework their lifestyle and get information. through you, doctor. Which of course brings me to my next question, which is there's often a myth associated to women getting their menopause. You know, age is always जो हर जगह लगा दिया जाता है. But very honestly, is there a right age, or is there a particular time frame that women tend to get their menopause, or is it very subjective? I would really want to know what exactly it would be.
So, menopause, I said what is menopause. So, a woman, when she doesn't have a period for 12 months or a complete year, then only she is called menopausal. But menopause doesn't happen overnight. So it is a gradual transition, and it will happen meaning over 2-3 years, sometimes 4 years. An average age of menopause in our literature is been given 50 to 51. So it depends on every from what race, population you come from. It also depends on what is your family history. So particularly if your mother had a late menopause, then more likely you will follow her when you are at her age. So it's like that. And so usually we say that after 45 or 47 is a time the menopausal symptoms may start, because the ovaries, which are functioning normally, releasing hormones in a normal rhythmic way, their functions decline as we age, as a part of aging process, and that is the reason the levels drop down, and you start initially getting psychomotor, like night flushes, hot flushes, night sweats, other changes, and eventually the period will stop.
Okay, understood. Also, doctor, like I want to understand, you know, we are amidst a pandemic. The whole conversation about COVID and COVID impacting, you know, your health. I have been a witness to it as well, because I was COVID positive a few months ago. It's almost been about 6 months since I tested, since I was positive, and now I'm tested negative. But even from my personal, you know, experience, and of course from a lot of other women who I have interacted with who had COVID, have definitely shared that they felt that their menstruation cycle went for a toss, you know, post recovery. Is that true, or is it only because we were so stressed about it that the stress led to the delay? Or and I'm very happy to even discuss, you know, what was addressed. So certain section of women saw that there was a delay in their periods. I definitely fall into that category. While there were other friends and, you know, relatives who I spoke to and interacted with, they mentioned that they saw a decline in the number of days they got their periods for. So how would you address something like that? What would be a possible remedy for it as well?
See, meaning good you brought up this question, because there has been a recent debate going on in the social media, and even our international bodies have kind of tried to address it. Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists from UK as well, because there has been a recent some article where they have kind of said some women, as you said, that had these issues, but till now there is not been a good evidence to suggest that okay, if you have had a COVID infection, it affects your ovaries, it affects your endocrine system, and that is the reason a woman can have these period issues, like delay in the period, or light periods, or painful periods. So that's to answer your question. But there can be, meaning if we relate and if we try to find a hypothesis of maybe possible reasons, is one thing, it depends on COVID infection, what degree of infection you had, because if it is a general infection where your whole body goes through a lot of stress, so that can impact on your hormones through brain, that is, we call it as a hypothalamo-pituitary axis, so which is the subconscious and a main center which controls all our fertility hormones. And yes, and because of that affection, these problems can happen. So that is one. And as you know, stress is the cause for everything, because the knowing that you have come in contact with COVID itself gives you so much anxiety, and going through it mentally, emotionally, it is a quite stressful period, and the stress can affect your body, your hormones in any unpredictable way. So what the recent statements from these international bodies are saying, yes, they do acknowledge this may be happening, but usually this is not a long-lasting effect. So usually after a couple of months, all your body will go back to normal, and you should have your regular pattern.
Oh, that's great. Which brings me to my last question, which is, of course, yet another very debatable topic across. How safe is it now for pregnant women to take the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, I think very, very in question and need of the hour question, I would say. With the current government of India agreeing for pregnant women to have a vaccine, I think it's why I'm saying the need of the hour, because as you know, the second wave has shown that if a pregnant woman catches infection, particularly in advanced pregnancy, so there is definitely a more risk of the disease becoming severe. There is almost twice the risk of premature labor or delivery, and sometimes loss of baby as well. So one needs to be very, very careful, and it's very important for pregnant women to get vaccinated. Now coming to the safety thing. Unfortunately, there are no clinical trials done on pregnant women before the launch, because there was no time for us. We wanted a way out from current pandemic. So the other important thing at the minute, the vaccines which are available, they are most importantly are non-live vaccine. So that means they are safe in pregnancy. Otherwise also in pregnancy, we do take vaccines which are non-live vaccines. So that's coming to that. The third thing is there are different types of vaccine available. So it's like you go in a supermarket and so you're confused. And so that is another thing. And there are a lot of recent reports coming about the one which are in the market. So you are more scared, which one should I go? So looking at the safety data, the only safety data is available for vaccine which are mRNA vaccine, that is Pfizer and Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna, which is from US, and more than 100,000 pregnant ladies have received this vaccine and they have not shown any adverse effects. Now in India, we don't still have availability of Pfizer vaccine and Moderna vaccine. Moderna has just been agreed, but it's still not available freely. So what we have is Covishield and Covaxin and Sputnik. So Covishield and Covaxin and Sputnik are similar kind of vaccines, and Covaxin is an mRNA vaccine. So so it's important for you to take the vaccine because it is not going to protect you, but it's going to give protection to your unborn child, and that is what is very important. So that's coming to the safety of the vaccine. So please, I would really ask all pregnant women to make sure they understand, they get counsel for this, and go and volunteer to take the vaccine.
Thank you so much, doctor, for actually putting it out there, because I'm sure this gives not only trust because it's coming from a doctor's mouth, but it also, there's always a fear, right? Especially when you're amidst a pregnancy. So I feel that this definitely would reach out to a larger, pregnant women and other women out there as well, who'd understand this and, go ahead and take the vaccine, because we are in precedent times and one needs to be very, very, very careful for sure. Thank you so much, Doctor, for doing this interaction with us. It was lovely catching up with you and understanding all the things that you shared with us. It was so informative, and I'm sure this is a conversational starter for a lot of women to step up, come out there and discuss these issues openly.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need anchors like you to be proactive and lead these reforms, which will not only affect the society, but it should affect the quality of care also which we are giving. So because that will, it's important to make the patient aware of their rights. And so if we make them aware, then we as a doctor also can find new avenues to practice preventive medicine and keep all the illnesses at bay.
Sure. Thank you so much, everybody who tuned in to watch this video. I would really hope that you guys liked the video. Comment on the video below if you have any questions for Dr. Vaishali. She practices in Mumbai, and we would love to address those questions and get Doctor once more on board with us for a fun interaction. Take care, keep safe, get vaccinated, and make sure that you visit a gynecologist. Thank you.